For our presentation, we chose the topic of sin taxes, and in particular, the sugar tax in the UK. Our question was, did the introduction of the sugar tax in the UK lead to a decrease in the consumption of sugar? We split the question up into different sections: theory, the benefits to society, the benefits to the government, the analysis of the sugar tax in the UK, and a counter-argument of why it wasn't effective. Sin taxes are defined as corrective taxes on goods like cigarettes, alcohol, and sugary drinks, which are believed to be overconsumed. Their purpose is to discourage the consumption of such goods in order to increase social welfare. For the theory section, we constructed a supply and demand diagram showing the effect of the sugar tax on fizzy drinks. The primary aim of a sin tax is to decrease the supply and consequently decrease consumption. The decrease in supply, illustrated by a shift in the supply curve to the left, results in an increase in price. This is shown by a shift from P1 to P2 in the diagram. Subsequent to the increase in price is a fall in demand, demonstrated by a shift from Q1 to Q2. However, the extent of the fall in demand can depend on the elasticity of demand for fizzy drinks. If the demand for fizzy drinks is relatively inelastic, the fall in demand may be small. In addition to this, it is also possible that the producers will absorb the cost of the tax themselves and not pass on the price increases to consumers. This, again, may mean that the fall in demand is small.
As discussed in the previous slides by Jessica, a sin tax is levied on specific goods and services that might be harmful towards society, such as alcohol and tobacco, which are believed to be overconsumed. However, from an economist's perspective, generally it is not enough for a good to have negative consequences to justify taxing it. For example, rock climbing or even driving a car has lots of negative health consequences. As said by Wharton economist Benjamin Lockwood, the key question from an economic policy perspective is whether people are taking into account these negative effects when they're making their consumption decisions. To clarify, sugary beverages are of great concern to the government as the negative health consequences come a long time after their consumption. Moreover, sugary beverages are a dangerous product as people tend to underweigh the distant consequences and overweigh the upfront benefits of consuming unhealthy products. Essentially, sin taxes bring three main advantages. Firstly, as their main purpose, they discourage unhealthy behavior. It has been proven that sin taxes on sugary substances greatly discourage their consumption. Thus, a decline in their consumption also leads to a reduction in health issues associated with them. Secondly, revenues from sin taxes provide the government with funds to spend in favor of society, or even cover the costs imposed by the consumption of other harmful goods. The government can do this by subsidizing healthcare or creating campaigns that inform the public about the dangers of consumption of these goods. Lastly, sin taxes are the most effective way for the government to collect tax revenues compared to other forms of taxes, such as an income tax.
A tax was introduced on sugary soft drinks in the UK in April 2018. Products that contain more than 8 grams of sugar per 100 ml are now taxed at 24 pence per litre, and products that contain 5 to 8 grams of sugar per 100 ml are taxed at 18 pence per litre. However, products with less than 5 grams of sugar per 100 ml are not subject to the tax. 52% of soft drinks were liable for the sugar tax before it was actually introduced, but by February 2019, 15% of the remaining drinks were liable for the tax. This shows that consumption would have fallen as companies either must reformulate their drinks to have a lower sugar content, or consumers are dissuaded by higher prices, both of which would reduce the overall national sugar intake. Coca-Cola were the only major brand to have not reformulated their drink to have a lower sugar content. Rather, they have increased the price of their drink by around 20 pence and reduced the size of their bottles, which you could argue would reduce the sales due to high price elasticity. However, the strength of the brand Coca-Cola will keep people's sugar consumption at a somewhat high enough level if they choose to buy it despite the high price, which is the main reason for the introduction of the tax. In saying this, Cola Zero saw a 50% volume increase, whilst the classic Coca-Cola suffered a 1% fall.
In analysing the sugar tax, a study in the UK advocating a reduction of sugar content in sweet beverages estimated that a 40% reduction in added sugars over 5 years would reduce the number of obese adults in the UK by roughly 500,000, and the cases of type 2 diabetes by around 300,000. Diabetes and its complications cost over £6 billion a year. The price of sugary drinks in many restaurants across the UK were raised by just 10 pence, but prominent messages explaining this were also printed on the menu. This increase in price led to a 9.3% decrease in diners ordering these beverages. In November, after the tax was introduced, £153 million was raised in tax revenue. This money collected as a form of revenue should be reused to promote healthy eating, especially in schools, more physical education and health-related activities to further reduce the strain on national health.
When assessing if the introduction of a sugar tax decreases sugar consumption in the UK, it is important to identify what firms are affected by the sugar tax. The UK sugar tax primarily focuses on soft drinks, so firms with sugary products outside of this industry are not affected. This means that firms outside of the tax will have not reduced their sugar content, and therefore sugar consumption in these industries is not reduced. There is also no guarantee that implementing a sugar tax will force lower sugar content levels within products. Producers like Coca-Cola just push the cost onto the consumer, leaving the same sugar content in the good. For consumers addicted or loyal to these brands, this will not reduce their consumption of the product, and in turn, their consumption of sugar will not decrease. Moreover, it should be considered that in some situations, soft drinks are all that can be afforded, and so whilst they are not the healthiest, people rely on them. In many urban areas, financially, people are not able to afford bottled water and are left with no other option than sodas. To increase the price of them through a tax would therefore place a great strain on these people's welfare. It is also important to consider that the sugar tax adversely affects those in society with lower incomes. Those with lower incomes end up having to pay a larger percentage of their income for these tax products. This could mean that the sugar tax may only reduce sugar consumption in poorer income brackets of society, hardly affecting those with larger incomes. Less intrusive methods that the UK government could use to tackle the sugar consumption levels are schemes such as educating young children on sugary products, educating them on the harms of these products and what quantities they should be consumed in. The government could also place a blanket ban on advertisement for sugary products that would inevitably reduce consumption.
In conclusion, sin taxes can be defined as corrective taxes on goods like cigarettes, alcohol and sugary drinks which are believed to be overconsumed. Their purpose is to discourage consumption and the associated health issues whilst increasing government revenue. Overall, they bring three main advantages. Firstly, they discourage unhealthy behaviour as the tax decreases overall consumption. Secondly, revenues collected from sin taxes provide the government with funds to spend in favour of society, such as healthcare. Lastly, sin taxes are the most effective way for the government to collect tax revenues. Most soft drink producers did formulate their drinks to have a lower sugar content, and so less sugar would be consumed by the general UK population. However, the sugar tax in the UK only applied to sugary drinks, meaning other sugary products did not have to reduce their sugar content. In addition to this, the elasticity of demand and the brand loyalty of some companies, such as Coca-Cola, mean that demand may not fall by as much as expected.